Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from Annie News. Cut content for solo leveling, episode 11. If you want to see my reaction to episode 11, links in the description to the Patreon page. I loved it. I thought episode 11 was absolutely fantastic. I thought that the previous episode was good. I remember saying something, I was impressed even though the action wasn't really there. It was very minimal in action. This episode was just like so much action and it was just awesome. The animation, the choreography, absolutely everything was just absolutely fantastic. And I'm very intrigued to see what was like either taken out or added in or just like, Jesus Christ, this is such a good episode. So yeah, let's get into this.
It's not an understatement to say that Sung Jinwoo got pretty lucky here.
Yeah.
For the first time since the Double Dungeon, he unfortunately found himself confronted by an opponent considerably more powerful than him.
So cool.
Like, not only was IGRIS' strength leagues beyond his own, but by Sung's own admission, so too was his agility and defenses.
Whoa.
There wasn't a single element in which Sung thought he could beat IGRIS in. How was it that he was still able to come out on top then? Well, that was a bit in part to Sung's ingenuity and another due to IGRIS' confidence. It was a sequence of events we didn't get to see in the anime, but one that explains how it is Sung was able to pull through here.
Because he does say in the anime as well that he was lucky to have won.
So, as we go through everything the anime left out from the fight, we'll also take a look at the interesting details from the scenes leading up to it.
Cool.
An in-depth look that I hope will make this already amazing episode a bit more enjoyable. Episode 11, A Knight Who Defends an Empty Throne. Covering chapters 38 to 41 from the manhwa and chapters 45 to 49 from the web novel. Something I'm sure we often forget about Sung is just how little he really knows about video games. I mean, we saw he was unfamiliar with how to navigate the system, but
That's true, yeah, okay, he is confused by it, yeah.
that's something that I'm sure almost anyone would struggle with. When he was confronted with the concept of the job change quest, though, that was a topic he felt he needed to do a bit of research on. Like, he knew it had something to do with furthering his build, but the full extent of what it meant was completely oblivious to him. So, as he searched online through the various wikis of video games, Sung became enthralled by the numerous benefits a class advancement came with. From new skills to class quests and even class-specific weapons.
God, this reminds me of the sphere grid in Final Fantasy X. That takes me back.
Everything he saw made him excited to complete his own job change. Sure, he was fearful of the dangers that could possibly rest within such a quest, but the rewards he knew he'd get eclipsed any sort of anxiety. So, for now, he could only focus on the potential bounty awaiting him. This is fairly standard behavior for Sung in general, but I find it comedic that a system designed to be identical to a video game is being used by someone who's never played one.
Yeah, it's quite
It makes it all the
fun
more
approach.
impressive when Sung comes up with all these ingenious ways to game the system. One particular one that wasn't mentioned in the anime was the plan Sung came up with to essentially level check himself. Since his main goal was to conquer the Demon Castle, he wanted to make sure he could handle more red name monsters like the Cerberus. Where could he go to find other red name monsters like that then? Well, the only other place he could think of was the penalty zone.
Of course, that makes sense, yes, and not completing it and then having to fight that thing.
So, before Sung would commit himself to attempting the Demon Castle again, he decided he would first make a trip back to the penalty zone.
Huh.
If he could kill the centipedes there without any hassle whatsoever, then Sung would be certain he could handle the Demon Castle.
That's so clever. That's such a cool way of gauging his power. Wow.
It was a decent plan that involved him intentionally avoiding the daily quest. In the manhwa and anime, he treats it more like an accident, but in the novel it was a deliberate choice to gain XP and verify his power.
Cool.
A slight change in context that fully highlights the difference between novel Sung and anime Sung. To flesh out Sung's decision in the anime even more though, missing his dailies was never actually an option for him. He was fully intent on doing them after the job quest was done. He believed he could finish the job quest in only a few hours and was planning to go back home then do his dailies after. It was only after he realized the job quest might actually make him miss said dailies that the benefits of going to the penalty zone started to become apparent. It was a thought he had never considered until forced to think about returning to the penalty zone. So, for Sung in the anime, it's more of an accidental thing that happens by chance, whereas in the novel, Sung's journey to the penalty zone is exactly what he wants.
Right.
It's a clear depiction of the different levels of desire Sung has towards getting more powerful. Now, Sung's searching the wikis did come with a bit of negatives too, since in the comments of each there were always people complaining. There were those who expressed disdain after having chosen the wrong class. This planted the idea that Sung might end up in the wrong class himself, and it made him think that his build might somehow end up useless for it. Fortunately, such a worry was very minimal since Sung was confident he'd be given the assassin class. From the skills he used to the weapons he
stealth
fought
and all
with,
that makes
there
sense,
wasn't
yeah.
a doubt in his mind that he would get anything other than assassin. It just wouldn't make sense considering everything he's built into so far. So, as he planned for that and the various encounters awaiting him inside, Sung would accept the quest and initiate the creation of it. The reason why I say creation is because the prompt he saw after accepting it was that a dungeon was being created specifically for him. It was as if the system was loading up its own version of a legacy dungeon, one that, as we saw, based many of its enemies off opponents Sung has fought before. The implications of such a message reinforce the idea of someone behind the system, and that's only further supported through the various clues from later on in the episode. The good luck was the first bit of emotion the system had ever displayed before, and it was an anomaly Sung was sure to take notice of. The other clue was the face we saw when the gate was being created.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's similar to that was sitting on the throne.
But
in
that
the
could
first
also just
dungeon.
be an artistic choice relating back to the statue from episode 1. Either way, Sung was intrigued by the way the system decided to treat this job change quest. It was fundamentally different in both form and function since the portal that appeared was unlike any of the ones made during the instant dungeons. In fact, the more Sung examined the way this portal was created, the more he came to realize it was a gate being made right in front of him. Not only did its creation resemble the same phenomenon which occurred when gates appeared, but its very shape and aura matched natural gates as well. He was genuinely surprised to see that the system had just manufactured an artificial gate right in front of him. It was as if it was trying to replicate the real-world methods in which Sung had been leveling with. So, if this was in fact a bona fide gate with all its properties, then Sung was curious to know whether other hunters could enter it as well. Unfortunately, no one was around to test that with, so it was a thought that would remain unanswered until the next quest-formed gate. Now, the quest itself was adapted damn near perfectly, but there were a few minor details worth mentioning leading up to the IGRIS fight. The first is the minimal lighting which failed to illuminate the interior. The torches made a path somewhat visible, but because the light didn't extend to any of the walls, Sung assumed he was just in a cave of some sorts.
Okay, cool.
It had created this dreary atmosphere in which his only method of sight was via perception. It was when Sung had killed the first knight that he had actually looked inside the armor to find the entire thing empty. There wasn't any dark liquid like how we saw in the anime, but instead just an empty husk as if the foe he fought was nothing but a moving set of armor.
Interesting choice then, I like that, that's cool. I do like how the anime is, like, messing with stuff, like, not too much.
It was after killing 3 of them that 2 surprisingly dropped some sort of loot for him. It was the highest drop rate for loot he had ever seen. Not to mention the most effective since the drops he usually got were garbage. So, this breastplate added 7% more to his physical damage reduction, and it could only be used effectively if his strength was over 80. If it wasn't, then he'd become over-encumbered and his movement slowed.
Oh no.
A mechanic that would serve as indication for IGRIS' strength later, since the ability to move so fast with his armor made it clear his strength was at the very least over 82. Now, Sung could only assume the better loot was because he was fighting humanoid monsters, since in a video game setting, it just made sense for humans to be carrying more than, say,
More
bugs
items,
or
yeah,
monsters.
it does make sense, yeah.
Like, just the idea of gold being dropped in a pouch was unheard of until now for him. Sung did also try to pick up other things in order to sell them later, but anything that wasn't a drop like the weapons the knights were using was immediately rusted then turned to dust. It seemed those items abided by the same non-transferable rules as his did, making it so anything that wasn't a drop item was unobtainable. It was as Sung delved deeper into the dungeon that the more enemies he encountered, the more he realized they were based off his own experiences.
So cool, so cool.
In the manhwa, he had found a few extra ways to take care of the knights, while
Just boom, clothesline the head off and
the
then
mage
crush.
was an
Wow.
opponent he immediately recognized as the one from Huang's group. In fact, the instant Sung sensed a collection of mana gathering behind him, he had already taken steps to get behind the person casting it. He wasn't so naive as to let himself get hit by the same attack twice, a move that showcased just how much he'd learned so far. This was
The little details, man, the little details.
2 hours into the quest, then another 3 would bring him up to that 66 fatigue level. If he was to gain 4 more, then a noticeable debuff would start to slow both his mind and body. So, of course, Sung wanted to sleep in order to try and take advantage of his inherent recovery skill, but anytime he would, the dungeon would just spawn even more monsters. It would seem a core trial of this quest was to complete it without any sort of recovery whatsoever. That didn't mean Sung couldn't reduce his fatigue though, since the counter for that would just decrease naturally over time. So long as he managed who he fought and when he fought them, he found he was able to keep his fatigue fixed at around the 40s level.
Very cool, very cool.
So, it was after a total of 6 hours had passed that Sung had finally made it to the boss room. His fatigue was sitting at a nice 43, his level now at 45, and his build fully kitted with drops acquired from the enemies he fought. The one that's most important to highlight out of all of them is the high-level Knight's Gauntlet, which applied something in addition to physical damage reduction. You see, not only did it provide 3% more in the way of reducing incoming damage, but it also came with this ability that protected his hands from injury.
Prevents all hand injuries, goddamn.
I'm not sure if this meant his hands were immune to all incoming damage, but it is the reason he was able to catch IGRIS' sword here.
Oh, right, okay. That's boss, Jesus Christ.
If not for the additional effect these gauntlets came with, there was no way Sung would have been able to win like this.
Right.
It's a fairly important attribute that I'm surprised the anime didn't include.
Yeah, what? Okay, wow.
In any case, when it comes to comparing the
So because the stats added to the hands from the gloves. Wow.
actual fight of Sung versus IGRIS, if we're talking about the manhwa, the fight was pretty much perfect. The action was captured panel for panel, and the intensity of it all was equal to or even better than the manhwa. Like, seeing Sung get dribbled like a basketball just made it all the more clear how outmatched he was.
It was so cool.
The novel paints a slightly different story though, since while yes he was still getting tossed around like a volleyball, there's an actual explanation for how Sung was able to land this critical hit here.
The thing is, well, with me, like, if you go check my reaction out on Patreon, you'll see it. I love it. Like, the Dragon Ball moment, it reminded me of the Dragon Ball Broly movie. IGRIS just grabs Sung and just cracks his head into the wall and then just drags him along and then just launches him. It was just like, oh, and the way that, like, Sung just decides, right, I'm going to go with fist and puts his sword down. And then IGRIS just goes, okay. It's like, oh.
You see, the fight in the novel was nothing but hands from the very beginning. Sung knew he wasn't going to be able to pierce IGRIS' armor, so rather than try and fail like how he knew he would, he instead initiated with fists right from the get-go.
Oh!
The first clash had IGRIS actually trying, but after seeing how weak Sung was in comparison to him, that's when he began to act a lot more confident. Sung could tell that IGRIS was way stronger too, because in addition to his strength being leagues above his own, both his agility and vitality seemed better too. No matter what he tried, Sung couldn't seem to get the best of IGRIS anywhere. So, as IGRIS and Sung both came to the same conclusion, IGRIS would just nonchalantly walk up to Sung after having tossed him. He would casually approach Sung as if he was Dio, then release an unrelenting series of punches without any regard for his own defenses. What I mean is that, despite Sung still somehow landing punches, they were so ineffective that IGRIS didn't even feel the need to dodge them.
Wow, so he could just tank it. He's just like, alright, what are you even doing, bro? Whoa.
He would simply tank whatever punch Sung threw head on, then continue his own attacks as if to say he wasn't even faced by him. This is an important sequence of events to take note of, because when we get to the part where Sung is sitting at the throne, the counterattack he planned relied solely on this. It took advantage of that blow-for-blow mentality IGRIS just displayed for him and used it to guarantee an attack of his own. So, Sung would catch IGRIS' sword using the additional effect of the gauntlet, then counter with a punch exactly like all the other punches he threw. This led IGRIS to think a punch was all it was, so while he was expecting to proceed with blow for blow like before, Sung would catch him by surprise and produce his dagger the instant before actually making impact with him. He knew IGRIS wouldn't dodge if a punch was what he led with, and that in turn allowed him to get a free hit straight to one of IGRIS' weak points.
Oh, cool. So IGRIS is like, his punches don't do anything. It don't matter if I don't block. And then he just all of a sudden goes dagger, bang. Ah, it's class.
So what IGRIS thought was going to be a weak, blunt attack he could continue to tank was
ended up being a knife to the face.
Instead
Jesus
of piercing
Christ.
blow straight into one of his eye sockets. He never considered that Sung might switch up his attack right in the middle of it. Plus, even if he did, the amount of time Sung gave to react to it was infinitesimal. It was a clever play that took advantage of everything Sung had observed so far.
That's so cool.
So, with that turning the tides of the battle, Sung would use tenacity to tank the shockwave of smashing IGRIS into the wall, then crit his face over and over until the fight was over.
Just keep attacking him in the face. Wow.
A hard-fought battle he definitely shouldn't have won, but pulled through nonetheless with a bit of luck and intellect.
Yeah.
If you're wondering how it is Sung knew his dagger would disappear after IGRIS grabbed it, Well, that's because he had tested the property with Jinho in the previous episode. Just like how I had mentioned in my last video,
Huh.
any item that says it's non-transferable will disappear if ever in the hands of someone that isn't Sung.
Of course, yeah, he did, didn't he? Oh, wow. So yeah, as soon as anyone else grabs that dagger, it transfers back. Ah!
It's a property unique to the system that makes Sung's inventory
That's so
his.
cool.
The
It all
rest
makes
of the episode
sense.
leads us into the actual job quest, and that's a place that will be good to pick up starting next episode. So, if you liked hearing more about this epic fight between Sung and IGRIS, or just like knowing more about solo leveling in general, consider leaving a like and letting me know down in the comments.
Yeah.
They really do help the video to do better. If you want to support the channel even more, then you can also check out the Level Up collection down below. It'll be available for one more week, then after that it'll be gone forever. So, if you want to secure one of these amazing pieces of clothing, then feel free to check them out with the Project Mugen link down in the description. But anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time.
Ciao. Very cool. Very, very cool. Because I thought that episode was awesome anyway. Let's see what was left out and changed, and how it all actually makes more sense. That was awesome. I've loved solo leveling. I think new episode's out at the moment. I'll put my reaction to that on Patreon in like a couple of days. Yeah, like, wow. Awesome. Thanks to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video and want to be able to watch patron-only reactions, links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask to help support the channel. It's great appreciate that. Thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time.